Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're doing some work on this guitar. It requires a new set of strings, and I felt that when the time came to replace the strings on this guitar, I wanted to see if I can darken up the fretboard. I did a full review on this guitar. This is a Hummingbird Epiphone inspired by Gibson, and you can check out my full review on this guitar here. But in the meantime, I wanted to see if we can darken up the fretboard. This guitar comes with a fretboard that is not made of rosewood, and I always enjoy darker fretboards. So I felt that when the strings would require changing, which is just about now, I would try to see if we can darken up this fretboard. So I'm going to take you along for the ride in case you're interested in seeing how I do this. Perhaps you want to try this for yourself. We're going to do it. We're going to take care of that today. So the first step in the process would be to remove the strings on this guitar. So let's do that first, and then we can jump right into the process of seeing how dark we can get this fretboard. And we're going to be putting in a brand new set of strings. We're going to be trying these strings, which are basically a set of Ernie Ball aluminum bronze medium light. These are 12 to 54. All right. I never tried these strings before. This guitar tends to be a little bit on the dark side. So I'm hoping the aluminum bronze will lighten things up a little bit and give it a little bit more top end, because some people claim that the aluminum bronze strings do a good job of lightening up the sound on acoustic guitars. Okay, one thing I like to do when I actually pull the pins off an acoustic guitar is I try to keep the pins in the same order that they came off in, because sometimes they're not all exactly the same. So to avoid any mismatch of hole sizes, I'll just use some tape, and I'll just put all of the pins back on. I'll just stick them onto the tape so that, you know, we know where they came from originally. Sometimes pulling out the pins is a little tricky. I have a little curved, as you can see here, a little bit of a curved pliers. They usually do a good job. I just use my finger as a leverage point so I don't scratch the wood. Now these pins have already been changed out. The original pins that come with this guitar are made of plastic. I went to bone, and I do think that the bone pins work a little bit better. Gentle when you're doing this. If they don't come out easy, just slow down. Okay, and now the strings should be able to come off relatively easily. By the way, guys, I appreciate you guys tuning in for these kind of videos. Hopefully you get something out of it. If you do, please consider subscribing and supporting the channel. Much appreciated. I usually use a product from Monty's Guitar. This is Relic Wax, which is basically wax mixed with some kind of colorant. In this case, I think he uses coffee or something like that, which is the consistency and look of shoe polish, but it's actually not shoe polish. You can use shoe polish too, but they probably put some ingredients in shoe polish that is toxic, and I don't know how much of toxic materials you want to have on your fingertips when you're playing guitar. This is why I use this. I think it's a little bit more environmentally and health friendly. I usually use feed-in wax to hydrate the fretboard. So today I'm going to try something different. I'm going to mix a little bit of this and a little bit of this just to make it a little bit thinner. Just to give it a little bit more of a thinner viscosity, and we'll see how it works on the fretboard. And I will also color the bridge. So let's have a little bit of a before shot here. This is the before. All right, the before shot. and we're going to give you an after shot when we're done. So to be able to protect the body of the guitar, what I like to do is use a little bit of tape. So this is kind of a painter's tape. You should use painter's tape that is not very, doesn't have too much tack, to protect, putting it down lightly, so it should come off easy. And we're just gonna apply some tape around the area where we're gonna be applying the wax, just to make sure we don't get any on the body. Protect the body as much as we can, obviously. We want to make sure not to mess things up. And I don't know why they decided to go with the lighter fretboard here. I guess it's, you know, cost cutting measures, but thankfully there are some things that we can do to make things a little bit better. All right. Once we have the bridge masked up, we're pretty much ready to go to the next step. All right. So the next step is really going to be applying the wax. I like to apply the wax with some regular old paper towels. Okay. You can pull out the bridge so that you can get the coloring in there and not color the bridge as well. So let's put the bridge there for the time being. We want to protect that. I wouldn't worry too much about the inlays because this generally doesn't color up the inlays much. So what we're going to do, actually we're going to mix it up a little bit. The feed-in wax is a lot more liquidy, okay, than the Monty's product. So we're going to just basically mix the two together. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little bit of feed-in wax in here. Whoa, that's more than what we need, much more, but okay, that'll do the trick. So we have feed-in wax here, and we're just going to use that, and we're going to dip in here first and then take a little bit of the feed-in wax, mix it up, see how well it mixes up together. So as you can see, this stuff is pretty dark, consistency of shoe polish, more or less. So I'm just going to try and see if I can get it a little bit more liquidy. And I'll start off with the fretboard here. Yeah, definitely, it's definitely much more liquidy in consistency. I've done this with other guitars, by the way. The Monty's stuff seems to work pretty well. So as you can see there how dark the first couple of frets are compared to the rest of the frets. We're going to apply it all the way down the neck. Be generous with all of this. And let it sink in. You just want to smear it in. It's kind of like, you know, you're giving this thing a hydration treatment. And we're probably going to let it sit after we actually put it on for a while. I would say anywhere between a couple of hours to 24 hours, depending on how impatient we get. All right, so let's just apply it all the way down. And this doesn't take very long, but you want to make sure not to get it all over your guitar body. As much as you can, you just want to limit it to the fretboard, because it could get messy, you know. So here's another shot of the fretboard. We're basically up to this fret here. You can see the difference in color between the area that was treated and the area that was not. Quite a bit of a difference there. Of course, things will lighten up once we remove it, because, you know, the first step is applying it. The second step is letting it dry. Then we have to remove it. So obviously when you remove it, you know, you'll take out a lot of the color, and you can do a couple of different treatments. Like you can do this a couple of times, you know. You don't have to limit it to one. If you want it darker, just do it again. Keep on doing it till it gets darker. You can see at this point that the neck is still wet. You can rub it off once it seems to be dry. So just let it sit there. You can wait till it's dry. You can apply another coat and then rub it off. But don't worry too much. Just let it sit and do its thing. So the fretboard is done. This is the first treatment. It's going to look worse before it looks better. All right, guys. So just remember that. Be patient. All right, now let's apply it to the bridge here. I'll do half the bridge just to show you the difference in the color. Now, obviously, the back of the bridge is going to be a little bit more tricky. I also used a Q-tip to get into the hole of the pegs so that things are consistent. You don't want to have wood that's two different colors. You want to make sure you cover everything at least with one coat. So here's half of the bridge done. Can you see that? So basically half of it is darkened, the other half isn't. Quite a bit of a difference there, I would say. Continue and do the rest. Now the wood really seems dry, you know, to me. Like I don't think they ever hydrated the wood at all. So it's gonna do the wood good to actually have a little bit of hydration on it. And there we have the bridge completely done. You can see that in terms of color. You can see how much darker it looks already. Starting to look a lot more like a real Gibson hummingbird. Let's give it a little bit of time to dry and then we'll come back. So at this point, we've been waiting about, I'm going to say 2.5 hours or so, almost 3 hours. I'm getting kind of impatient. So I'm going to just leave it at that and allow this to be the first run of the actual staining process. It's taking to the wood quite well. And I think what's probably going to be better is if I just do it a couple of times in a row, just over time, you know, let what's already there settle in and absorb into the grain and the cells of the wood, and then come back later on, maybe the next string change and do it all over again. But I'm quite happy as it is already in terms of the color that we're getting on the wood. So at this stage, all we really have to do now is wipe off what we've already put on there, which doesn't take very much time at all. Again, I'm just using regular old, kitchen towel, paper towel, and you probably want to wipe it down a few times just to make sure you get everything off. And the idea here is just to take off whatever you've put on that's loosely hanging on there. You don't want to have, crud on your fingers and on your string. So I'm just rubbing back and forth, going through the motions. You can see quite a bit is coming off, not as much as you would expect. So I can already tell that there's already quite a bit that has absorbed. And of course, the longer you leave it in, the longer the wax has a chance to solidify into the pores. That's the whole idea. And you can see quite a bit less comes off the second time around. So once we've gone through this process, the next step is really just to take the strings, put them back onto the guitar, and string it up like you normally would. I could tell that there's a lot less coming off the bridge. The bridge seemed really dry. So I don't know if that has something to do with it, but I took off the tape, as you can see here. So I'm just working off the bridge. At first glance, it seems like the bridge is a lot darker. And I think we're ready to put the strings back on, guys. There's definitely something satisfying about working on your guitar and putting on new strings. This is the first time that I'm actually putting on a set of these Ernie Ball strings here. Let me just put the saddle back on to the guitar. And then we'll continue stringing up the guitar. I'm really hoping I'm gonna like these strings because they're expensive. So the way I like to go about installing the strings on an acoustic, I just stick the string down the hole as far as it will go. Take the pin, just so you remember to take the pin in the right order. I have them marked up here. And I'll slide the pin in and then pull the string up just a little bit so it's actually up against the bottom of the pin. That's how I like to do it. When working on the headstock and determining the length of the strings, I usually just like to go up to the next post, do a little turn over the post, slide it in, and tune it up. And I like to put the string underneath on the first wrap. All right, so make sure you're going in the right direction, hold the string down. And then of course use your little snipper to snip off the string, make a nice clean cut. Make sure you don't cut off anything you're not supposed to, and you're in business. So of course you will have to allow the guitar to stabilize in order to make sure that the tuning is, not gonna change over time. But it's sounding nice. So far. So apart from the tuning, what do you guys think? This is the after shot of the very quick 2.5 hours, 2 to 2.5 hour dye job that we did with Monte Presso rollicking wax and a little bit of Howard's feed and wax, a mixture of both, just as a test to see if it would work. I think both work really, really well. If you want to go with the darker, you can use the Monte Presso. If you want to just hydrate your neck and just make it a little bit darker, you can go with the Howard's Feed and Wax. Works really, really well. In any case, I'm super happy with the end results here. I hope you can see the difference, and maybe you want to try it on your own Hummingbird Epiphone inspired by Gibson guitar, the way it should be, nice and dark.